Question 8, and I call on the Honourable Member for Garff, Mrs Caine.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I would like to ask the Treasury Minister what progress has been made with introducing workplace pensions and if he will make a statement.
On the Treasury Minister to reply.
Mr Speaker, in thanking Mrs Caine for her question, I recall answering a question in this House on the same subject from the Honourable Member Mr Hooper in January of this year. At that time I indicated that the Treasury had consulted on this matter and was analysing the results with the intention of detailing Treasury's next steps before Easter. A response was indeed published early in March when it was indicated that I hoped to make a statement in October this year. However, subsequent worldwide events took priority. In answering this question, therefore, I'm very happy to make a statement to this House. Mr Speaker, just before the COVID emergency was declared in March this year, I published a summary of responses to the consultation conducted during the summer of 2019 in relation to the provision of workplace pensions and indicated that I would provide an update in October of this year. Much has happened since then, and my update is a little later and much shorter indeed than I had intended at the time. We received over 200 responses to the consultation, and I am grateful to all those who took the trouble to make their views known. Clearly, a significant proportion of consultees were in favour of examining ways to encourage greater provision being made by individuals for their retirement. In general, people supported the principle of the provision of workplace pensions and that this provision should be mandatory. Naturally, there were some who felt it ought to be a matter of choice rather than compulsion. There were a number of other views expressed through the consultation, and we recognise and acknowledge we recognise and acknowledge the genuine and reasonable concern from some employees and among a number of employers over potential costs and the administration that would be required of many businesses. I do consider those concerns to be important. At the time, I said those concerns must be balanced against the long-term benefits to the individual of saving for their retirement. Since then, the COVID-19 pandemic has swept through the world and presented many and various challenges to individuals, communities, businesses, and indeed to our island. It is clearly important that we focus now on safeguarding jobs and should do nothing at this time that in any way detracts from that key priority. Looking beyond the current pandemic, I do think that whatever changes are manifested in our lives and workplaces, we will still have to take steps to help many more people in our society to make adequate provision for their retirement years. Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Mrs Caine.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Speaker, and I do thank the Minister for his reply, albeit shorter and later than anticipated. And of course, we all appreciate that the COVID pandemic has come in the middle of all this. But a couple of responses made very useful suggestions. And looking ahead beyond the pandemic, can the Minister advise whether the Treasury has any engagement with key stakeholders to consider how this can be taken forward, or does it intend to? And on the basis, does he support a potential future of auto-enrolment for employees in a workplace pension? And for instance, would they look further afield? For instance, one of the suggestions in the responses was the New Zealand Kiwi Saver plan, a combo retirement and first house programme with government bonuses if you pay so much per year. Is any of this under active consideration by Treasury, and are they engaging or planning to engage with key stakeholders on this? Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Minister to reply.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. It was indeed a very useful consultation response document, and if members haven't had a chance to read it, I would recommend that they do, and indeed I would encourage all interested parties to have a look at the consultation response document. I think in short, Mr Speaker, Treasury's priorities are focused elsewhere at the moment, and particularly stabilising the economy and seeking to protect jobs and invest in our future, as well as responsibly managing and focusing on the fiscal position of the island and our public finances. This matter has not gone away, I would suggest, but is in abeyance. Treasury remain committed to this. I personally have a strong view that there is a place for workplace pensions, but honourable members will understand that this is quite a complex issue and is not necessarily one that is simple to resolve. I think right at the very beginning I did outline that for large firms, large companies, many of them do have existing pension schemes that they offer their employers. The impact of this is going to be felt predominantly amongst smaller businesses, and probably those businesses that I might point out are under considerable pressure at this moment in time. Yeah. I do not think, therefore, it's appropriate to burden them at this precise time, or indeed in the immediate future, with the potential complexities of introducing a workplace pension scheme, but also the additional cost that will come with that. And therefore, Honourable Members, I hope you'll agree with me that it is probably a responsible at the moment to just put this into an abeyance or in a holding position. And I would hope that once we get through the next period, probably spring and summer, that the Treasury and indeed the business community and wider community will be in a position to again pick this up and take this forward to find the right solution for individuals so that they can have an additional support mechanism that will help them in their retirement.
Supplementary question, Mr. Quine.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the honourable gentleman's pretty much answered the question which I was about to pose during this last statement, and that is that the fact that the introduction of workplace pensions with businesses employing perhaps less than 10 people could be somewhat cost prohibitive to the viability of the business. Thank you.
Minister to reply.
Yes, is in short, Mr. Speaker, and that's why I think when you look at the consultation, one or two of those responses suggest that this is the sort of scheme that would be introduced on a very gradual basis, leading to a build-up incrementally of the contributions that might be being received from any employer engaged in this. But there are potentially multiple solutions to this, multiple options to achieving the aims and objectives here, and therefore there is still a considerable thought process and engagement process that would need to be followed.
Supplementary question, Mr. Robertshaw.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I certainly agree with the Treasury Minister that it is a very complex area, particularly with regard to 0 hours and gig economy engagement in this matter, but we're all aware that he's embarked on an important review of national insurance, and does he consider it sensible to, as it were, integrate the two considerations, and that there is an interplay between them in the final analysis in this matter? Thank you.
Treasury Minister to reply.
Thank you. I certainly think there is an interplay between the two in terms of determining individual support mechanisms for their later lives and for their ability to sustain themselves post retirement. I'm not necessarily convinced that would potentially be a material impact in terms of national insurance, its future, and the introduction of workplace pension schemes. But I think the Honourable Member's point should be certainly considered when one is bringing forward any future proposals for national insurance.
Final supplementary, Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the Minister agree with me that he must be slightly disappointed that, given that this issue was raised with the 2013 Ageing Population Report that Mr. Robertshaw organised, and that even a few weeks ago, when that was updated, this was mentioned as an important point, that the alternative to not having this type of pension is potential pensions inequality and perhaps even pension poverty. So would the Minister agree with me that this challenge should be acknowledged and should be an important point for at least the next administration?
Minister to reply.
Well, I certainly think I am slightly disappointed that we haven't achieved further progress with workplace pensions, but we have achieved progress on a huge number of matters to address a lot of problems that were existing in 2016 around equality, as the Honourable Member knows, and I think that we have made huge progress in ensuring that our families on the island are in a better position than what they were, particularly when it comes to their financial positions and their ability to meet the cost of living. I would also caution him that somehow workplace pensions are going to be a panacea for individuals in their retirement, even for the low to middle income earners, even with a workplace pension. The initial analysis is that the pension that they would build up would make a small contribution potentially to their retirement, but may not go to completely fulfil the type of lifestyle and position that some people may want. So there is still a lot of work to do, and I certainly wouldn't necessarily be of the view that a workplace pension would solve all ills when it comes to providing for a safe and secure retirement.